He insulted Ozzy Osbourne's childhood on live TV. But no one was ready for what Ozzy said next. His response left the whole world silent. Fire if you love Ozzy Osbourne. Fire if his voice runs in your veins. Fire, then share this video right now and help us hit 1,000 subscribers on Voices of Darkness. Prove your love. You know what to do. The studio lights burned bright, reflecting off the polished black floor like scattered shards of stardust. The audience murmured with excitement. Cameras rolled. Producers whispered final cues through headsets. Tonight's episode of Night Pulse Live was already breaking records, because Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself, was seated in the guest chair AT-76. Ozzy carried the weight of decades, the fame, the chaos, the darkness, the tenderness. But tonight, there was something different about him. His long coat draped around him like a cloak of shadows, and his round glasses glowed under the studio lights. Behind that glow, however, hid eyes that had seen more pain than most could ever imagine. Across from him sat Graham Doyle, a talk show host known for his sharp tongue, sarcastic humor, and viral controversy clips. He had insulted many celebrities before. Tonight, he aimed to push Ozzy, maybe too far. Graham leaned forward with a smirk. "So, Ozzy," he began, flipping through his note cards, "let's talk about your early life." He added emphasis to those last words, in a tone dripping with mockery. Ozzy looked up slowly, calmly. "Yes," he said softly. Graham chuckled. "I mean, let's be honest. You grew up in a dump, didn't you? Poverty, chaos, illness, drinking at what, 9, 10? The audience shifted uncomfortably, but Graham wasn't done. "What kind of childhood is that? Sounds like something out of a tragedy movie. I mean, did anything good ever happen to you? Or was it all just garbage?" A few people gasped. Someone whispered, "He can't say that." Cameras zoomed in on Ozzy. His face didn't twitch. His breath didn't quicken. He just stared. Stared with the calmness of a man who had survived storms no host, no critic, no insult could ever match. Graham continued, enjoying the tension. "Seriously, Ozzy, how does someone crawling out of a broken childhood like yours become anything? Let alone a rock legend? I mean," and then it happened. Ozzy raised his hand. The host fell silent, the audience leaned in as Ozzy removed his round glasses slowly, revealing eyes filled not with anger but with something older, something heavier, something deeper. Ozzy took a long breath. "When I was a kid," he began, his voice almost trembling, "we didn't have much. We didn't have space. We didn't have privacy. We didn't have comfort. But we had one thing you clearly don't, my friend." Graham blinked, unsure whether Ozzy was joking or serious. Ozzy leaned forward slightly. "We had respect." The entire studio froze. Ozzy continued, voice steady, every word carrying the weight of memories carved into the bones. "My father worked his hands to the bone. My mother, she was a warrior. And my childhood, broken as it was, made me stronger than your words ever could." The audience erupted in applause, but Ozzy lifted his hand again, signaling them to stop. This wasn't performance, he wasn't done. Ozzy swallowed, glancing toward the camera, as if speaking to millions beyond just the studio. "You call my childhood garbage," he said quietly, "but it was a fire that forged me. Without that struggle, there is no Black Sabbath, no music, no future." Graham shifted in his seat, his smirk fading to Ozzy's voice trembled, not with anger, but with truth. "I grew up poor. I grew up scared. I grew up lost. But every bruise, every mistake, every dark night gave me strength to stand here today. And if you think mocking that makes you powerful," he paused, "you've never survived anything real." A silent lightning bolt struck the room. The audience stared. Graham's eyes widened. Even the cameras seemed to freeze. Ozzy wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. He was just honest. Painfully, brutally honest. For the first time in his flashy career, Graham Doyle had no comeback. Ozzy looked down for a moment. Memories flickered behind his eyes. Birmingham streets, factory smoke, hunger, the tiny bedroom shared with 5 siblings. He wasn't embarrassed of where he came from. He had carried those memories all his life like scars and medals at the same time. Ozzy slowly placed his glasses back on. The glow returned, But the room's energy had changed. He sat up straight and said one final line, a line that would be replayed across the world for years. You don't get to judge the darkness that made me, mate, because without it, you have nothing to talk about today. The studio exploded with applause. Crowd stood. Some even cried. Ozzy simply leaned back, hands folded, calm as a storm he had just unleashed. And for the first time ever, Graham lowered his eyes. White medium starred the silence after the sound of applause still echoed like thunder trapped inside the walls of the studio. But the room itself remained frozen. For a moment, the crowd wasn't sure whether to sit, continue cheering, or simply stare at the living legend who had spoken with a power no one expected. Graham Doyle sat stiffly, hands clasped together, his face pale, as though the shadow of Ozzy's past had reached forward through time and slapped him with reality. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of discomfort across the talk show host's expression. Ozzy didn't look at him. He didn't need to. His word hung in the air like a blade still humming after being struck. The audience whispered behind cupped hands. Did he just shut Graham down? I've never seen Ozzy so serious. That wasn't anger, that was pain. That was truth. But no one knew, absolutely no one, that Ozzy wasn't finished. He had opened the door to a memory that had been locked away for years. And now, the darkness behind that door began to spill forward. White medium star Graham's falling hitting Graham cleared his throat. It cracked. He tried again. Still cracked. Finally, he forced a smile, but it looked like a mask melting under heat. W.O. Ozzy, he stuttered. That's quite an intense way to look at it. Ozzy tilted his head. Try growing up in my shoes. You'd be intense, too. Snickers echoed from the audience. Graham felt sweat drip down his spine. He grabbed another card, desperate to steer the show back into safe territory. So, tell us about the first time you felt music with an escape? Ozzy didn't blink. Escape? That word. That ancient wound. He leaned back, fingers curling slightly, as if touching the strings of memory instead of guitar. My first escape, Ozzy said softly, wasn't music. The audience leaned in. It was silence. Graham frowned. What do you mean? Ozzy took a deep breath, the kind of breath a man takes when he's about to bleed words instead of blood. When you grow up hearing your parents argue every night, hearing your stomach growling louder than the radio, hearing people tell you you're worth nothing, he paused. Silence becomes the biggest dream you can imagine. A woman in the audience wiped a tear from her cheek. I used to close my eyes, Ozzy continued, and imagine a place where everything stopped hurting. A place where the world wasn't so cruel, where I wasn't a disappointment, where I wasn't invisible. He swallowed hard. I thought silence was freedom. Then he looked directly into the camera. But I was wrong. The world watching at home leaned closer to their screens. Silence wasn't freedom. It was fear in disguise. And music. Music was the first thing loud enough to break it. The audience erupted again, but this time the applause came with tears. Ozzy had turned a talk show into a confession booth. White medium started childhood. He never told Ozzy looked away from the crowd, eyes drifting off to a distant place, a place only he could see. My house didn't have space, he whispered. Not for dreams, not for comfort, not for children trying to figure out who they are. He looked down at his hands. I remember sitting by the window as a kid, listening to the world outside. Other children laughing, playing, living. And me? I was wondering if anyone would miss me if I disappeared. Several people in the crowd gasped. I didn't have toys, didn't have privacy, didn't have a warm bed most nights, and I didn't have the kind of confidence you need to grow. He smirked sadly. You know what I did have? Graham didn't dare answer. I had shame. Ozzy closed his eyes, letting memories rise like ghosts. I felt ashamed of how I lived. Ashamed of how little we had. Ashamed of my clothes. Ashamed of being hungry. Ashamed of being me. A man in the back row covered his mouth with his hand. Ozzy looked directly at the host. So when you mock my childhood, Graham, you're mocking the smallest, saddest version of me. The boy who was too afraid to even speak. Graham looked down at his desk. Ozzy continued. That boy died the day I decided I wouldn't let the world break me anymore. White medium started a moment that changed as Ozzy shifted forward in his chair, the leather creaking under him. You want to know when it changed? He asked. The host nodded cautiously. It changed the day my father came home, exhausted from work, his hands cracked, his clothes dirty, and he sat down next to me. Ozzy's lips trembled. My father didn't talk much, but that day he noticed a sadness in my eyes, and he asked me, "John, what do you want to be?" He smiled faintly, sadness mixing with warmth. I told him I want to be someone people wouldn't forget. The room went completely silent. His father's response echoed in Ozzy's voice. "Then stop being afraid of who you are." Ozzy wiped a tear from beneath his glasses. That moment, that sentence, that fire he lit inside me, it saved my life. White medium star, the host tries again, and Eva Graham finally mustered the courage to speak. "Well, Ozzy, I didn't mean to offend you. I was just—" Ozzy raised a finger. "Don't apologize to me," he said softly. "Apologize to the kid who's sitting at home right now, thinking his life is worthless because he grew up in poverty." Graham froze. Tell him that where he comes from doesn't define where he's going. The audience clapped loudly, not out of excitement, but out of respect. Ozzy leaned back again, his glasses reflecting the stage lights like a shield. "That's who I'm talking tonight," he said. "Not you, not the tabloids, not the critics." His voice cracked. "I'm talking to the kids who think the darkness around them is the end of their story." White medium star, raw moment until Graham swallowed hard. "Ozzy, what kept you going through all that darkness?" Ozzy looked up, eyes glistening. "You ever hear your heart beat louder than your pain? That's what kept me going." He touched his chest. I knew deep inside that there was a voice inside me screaming to be heard. He smiled. And when I finally let that voice out, the world listened. Thunderous applause filled the studio again. Ozzy lifted his hand. "There's a lesson there," he said as the applause softened. "No matter how dark your life is right now, there's a voice inside you begging to rise. And if you let it, it will shock the world." White medium star, the host, breaks down for the first time in his career, Graham Doyle, the man known for savage jokes, shameless insults, and cold-hearted roasting, began to cry and he tried to hide it. He turned away. He laughed awkwardly. But the tears kept coming. The audience gasped softly. "Ozzy," he whispered, voice trembling, "I didn't know you went through all that." Ozzy gave a soft nod. "That's the problem with the world, mate," he said. "You think you know people because you know their fame." Graham wiped his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Not just for what I said, but for not understanding the weight behind your journey." Ozzy put a hand on the table between them. "We all hurt each other," he said gently. "The real strength is admitting when you're wrong." The audience applauded again, softer this time, with more heart. A warning and a hope. Ozzy straightened in his chair. "This world is full of people who will judge you before they know you," he said. "People who will mock your scars before they understand your battles." He removed his glasses again. "But listen to me now. This is coming from a man who has walked through hell more than once." His voice deepened. "You are not where you come from. You are not the pain you survived. You are not the insults people throw at you. You are what you fight for." A breathless hush filled the studio. "If someone mocked your past," Ozzy said, "remember this. Your past is the reason you're strong enough to survive the future." People in the audience cried openly now. White medium star, the show ends with a moment no one saw coming. The producer signaled that the show was almost out of time. But Ozzy wasn't finished. He turned toward the live audience first. "If you're going through darkness, I've been there. If you're broke, I've been there. If you feel worthless, I've been there." He pointed at his chest. "And look where I am now." The crowd rose to its feet. Then he turned toward the camera, speaking not to fans, but to broken souls. "You are not alone." The screen faded to black, and the world cried with him. White medium star ending message for YouTube video, CTA. Fire, this story touched your heart. Prove your love for Ozzy Osbourne. Fire, share this video with your friends. Fire, subscribe to our channel, Voices of Darkness. Fire, help us reach our target of 1,000 subscribers. Fire, if Ozzy lives in your heart. Show it. Share it. Spread it. Prove your love. You already know what to do.